Hi, welcome to this part of my tutorial and walkthrough on how to run a pre-generated module as a solo experience. If you haven't seen the other part, that is part 1 of this tutorial, please check out the playlist in the description below. So, where we left off, the adventurers had gone down these steps, escaping from those killer statues, and because they realized that the statues would not follow them, the adventurers stopped halfway down the steps to heal with spells. I forgot to mention that the Crusader's shield was shattered during the fight, so I used almost all of my spells healing the members of the party. I read ahead a bit, just a paragraph just to see what the room was going to contain, what the initial part of the room, and I found out that if you rest in this underground crypt, you are assailed by ghosts that stop you from resting unless you somehow banish them. So this is quite worrisome. My adventurers are a bit wounded, and I only have one spell remaining. I think one spell. I need to check the character sheet again. But yes, things are somewhat grim, not exactly doomed to failure, but it could have been a better start. So I kept on reading, and I decided to take a quick look at the map at the end of the adventure to see the layout of the first room. And so, Raden the elf and Ardas the crusader are both carrying torches. You can see the formation here. While Esther the ranger is watching the rear, the other ones are ready to take on whatever happens inside of this initial room. It's a grand hall. It is dark and filled with webs. I stopped reading here right away. It also said that you need a light source, but because we have torches out already, well, that's taken care of. But when I read dark and filled with spider webs, I immediately thought there's going to be like giant spiders inside of this room. And then I considered starting to burn the webs using the torches, but what if there is some sort of scroll or map and we end up burning that paper or parchment or whatever by trying to burn the spider, so I decided not to. So the course of action was that the adventurers were going to enter the room quite carefully, looking everywhere, trying to see if there's something on the ground, in the walls, the ceiling. So the room is quite big, and what they immediately notice is that the walls are covered in these paintings. It's basically a configuration of murals depicting scenes of degeneracy and sacrificial rites. It also says here that an enigma roll is required to make sense of these murals. So Hanzo and Balkan decided to step forth and carry out their interpretation of the murals, while the rest of the party are going to keep watch around them. And I thought it would be a great idea if Hanzo and Balkan would whisper a bit, not too loud, just calling upon the spirits of the place so that they share their secrets with them, so that they tell their story. And I thought that this would grant them a bonus. That is, as a game master, I think this merits a bonus in the form of a better die roll, because their abilities count as +2. So it's a step above the normal die. They're going to roll a d6 instead of a d4. They make their roll, and it is a success. It is difficulty 3, and they rolled a 6. So these murals actually give you the solution to a puzzle in another room. Now you could be thinking, what if they failed their roll? If they failed that roll when they get to that room, it depends on the consequences of not solving the puzzle in that room, because I haven't read that far ahead yet. I don't know what's going to happen in that room. My initial thoughts are that if you get to that room and you face the puzzle and you try to solve it, you could try to make some enigma rolls to see if they solve the puzzle, and every time that they fail, they run the risk of encountering a monster. You make a wandering monster roll using perhaps the tables in the quick start section of the Solo Adventuring Toolkit, and that's one way of handling things. But we shall see when the characters get to that room. So now they know the solution to this puzzle, and they decide to look around the room. They notice that there is a single corridor leading outside of the room. They start to walk towards it, but they realize that at the central section of the corridor there is this sinister blue aura. They feel this dread, this evil coming from it. And I stopped reading right there. And here I really got very nervous. I am thinking, what can I do with this sort of aura? When I created the characters, I made a roll to see how much money they would start with, and the roll was decent. It wasn't that good, so I couldn't purchase too many things in terms of exploration gear. I have some rope and hammer and nails to spike doors, all of that. So I decided that the barbarian Theon was going to throw this small hammer from the hammer and spikes kit to see if it would have some sort of effect on the blue aura. So he throws that hammer, and I read ahead to see if it would have some sort of effect upon the aura. And it turns out that it is a cursed aura. It is not affected by anything except by using Enigma, making an Enigma roll to see if you can dispel it. So once again, Balkan and Hanzo stepped forward and they carried out their rites. I couldn't think of a creative solution, that is, I gave myself a small time limit of 30 seconds to see if I could come up with a brilliant idea to take on this problem, but I couldn't think of anything, so I made a normal roll with a d4, but they actually succeeded. They dispelled this aura. If they failed, I decided to make it so that the entire party would be cursed by this aura, and they would have gotten a penalty when it comes to their resistance rolls for the rest of the adventure. But luckily they managed to dispel this aura. Hanzo and Balkan are becoming the most important characters in the party. They managed to solve that first problem through the mists, finding those secret steps into the crypts, allowing the entire party to escape from the golems or the statues. They also deciphered the murals, and now they dispelled this aura, so really good work on the part of those two. This part was really exciting for me. When they were exploring that darkened room, I could visualize the entire room just completely suffocated in this darkness, and just the small lights of the torches lighting the path ahead, and you see all those murals with those scenes of degeneracy and human sacrifices. So really creepy, and I wasn't sure what I was going to encounter. Another important thing to notice of the adventure so far is that, as you can see, I haven't made a single roll on any of the tables of the Solo Adventuring Toolkit. I am just following the procedure explained of reading a paragraph at a time, not reading too far ahead. So don't feel too overwhelmed when you have your oracles and your tables and your toolkits and anything. You don't need to roll all the time, just like with a regular or a typical role-playing game session with your players. You sometimes just make rolls for challenging situations, but when it comes to a solo experience, you will have to make your rolls to solve the different situations, the problems, combat, puzzle solving, etc. But when it comes to rolling on the oracles, on the tables, on the emulators, you only need to do that when it's absolutely necessary. And so far, so good. But don't be too surprised if some of the party members end up dying later on. After all, I am playing this quite strictly, as challenging as possible. And well, let's see how they fare in the next part of this session. Thank you for watching this part. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending drive-thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.